It's official. We now have an Avatarverse. With the news that lead creators Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko have started Avatar Studios to focus on the future of this fantastical world, including a new movie, we're stepping back into the world of Avatar to cover The Legend of Korra, Book 2, Spirits. Billy, do the thing!
Previously on Script or Screen, Chris and Zach sat down to talk about Book 1 of the Avatar series, Legend of Korra. Now they're back in the studio to discuss the follow-up season. What awaits these two in this episode?
Now, Billy, if you could just add, like, a really cool, like, kind of radio effect.
Like a crackling.
Yeah, just make it sound nice. Hey, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to Script or Screen. Thank you, Radio that's not a word. Radio announcer. It's morning. This is like, we don't record many podcasts in the morning, Zach, but this is...
No, we usually don't.
This is a good one. Welcome. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm not tired. I actually had a lot of really well-needed rest last night. I think I got a full
wonderful.
12 hours.
Wow, 12 hours.
No, not that exaggerated. I went to bed at like 11 and I woke up at like 7:30ish. I think that's pretty normal.
That's about 8ish.
Yeah, I'd say I was pretty happy with that. Pretty content.
Nice. I also got a lot of good sleep.
Nice.
This is our sleep episode of Script or Screen. We're your hosts. I'm Zach Strackman. That's Chris Kitchen.
Hey, you could follow us on Script or Screen on all of our social media pages. That's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. You could also find Script or Screen at its home website, scriptorscreen.com, or anchor.fm/Script or Screen. Check out us on all your favorite listening platforms. Like we've mentioned in the past episodes, we're now on iHeartRadio, which I just heard, by the way, is the #1 source for podcasting. I don't know if that's true, but it's what it says on the radio when you tune in your car, if you still do that. Zach, do you still listen to the radio in your car?
Yes, actually, I kind of split between. I have my
like
satellite
Bluetooth
radio,
or the aux cord or something like that.
I have Bluetooth in my car, and I have satellite radio, but then I also will listen to like podcasts like through Bluetooth from my phone.
Lucky you. But you could always find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, any platform, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're there for your selection.
Listening pleasure.
And by the way, if you want to ask us a question, be sure to leave us a comment on any of our platforms or submit a question directly through our website. That's scriptorscreen.com.
Yeah, you can suggest episodes. You can tell us what you liked, your opinions. You can tell us how good we sound or how much you didn't like our episode. All questions or comments are welcome.
And with that being said, it's time to get into the news. And now to Zachary with weather. How's the weather, Zach?
It's sunny out, and we have a 100% chance of new Avatar stuff coming in the future, because Avatar, the Avatar verse is upon us. We have an Avatar verse.
I hate that phrase. I do not like it. I get the whole universe, right?
Right.
The MCU, the DCEU, the Star Wars U, whatever they call it. But all these, I mean, the Monsterverse, right? That was a thing. But what is Avatarverse? You know, I get it. I get people are excited. That's what we wanted, I guess. But I just don't like that name.
I feel like maybe they were. I nothing it. It's. I've heard better.
Nothing it.
Yeah, I've heard better. I've heard worse. But I feel like they had to be careful, because I think, like, you know, they could call it like the world of Avatar, but then I don't know if that's what they call like the Avatar franchise, the James Cameron Avatar. And then there's also, like, I don't know, you call it like the bending verse, because then it's like it's just a bunch of people doing aerobics.
I don't know.
Avatar, that's the key word. It's a key word, and But anyway, yes, that was a really cool announcement. I follow a few of the
whole studio.
I follow a few of the cast members on like social media, like Dante Basco and gosh, I'm blanking on her actual name. Her like voice actor name was Jessie Flower. She voiced Toph.
Oh right.
And they had shared the post about Avatar Studios, and so I was like, oh my god,
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's exciting. Avatar in the past has given us a lot of great material, and we could only hope to get better material. I know some people left the series unfulfilled and want more fulfillment, and it's kind of resurged in the last year as being incredibly popular. I mean, we've done 2 podcasts about it to show our appreciation for the show and just our thoughts, and now we're back with probably the most controversial piece in all of Avatar history.
Well, maybe not the most controversial, because we're not covering the M. Night Shyamalan movie.
No, I mean like actually like real Avatar stuff.
Oh, you mean like canon?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, Legend of Korra, Book 2, Spirits.
Yeah, Book 2, Spirits.
Ooh.
What did you? I mean, I know in our last Korra episode, we briefly we glazed over some of our thoughts about where Korra would go. But now that we're here, remind us, Zach, how do you feel about Book 2?
It is. I teeter. I teeter mainly toward the negative, but not to say that there is nothing positive. There's a lot in this season that does work really well, but unfortunately, I feel like there are some things in this season that are just like as a person who writes and who is very fascinated by lore and stuff like that, kind of stuff that has me, grabbing my head, like why would they choose to do certain things? But as a whole, like it's funny because it's like once you get past this season, it's pretty much all good from here. So it's like it's almost like it's just a necessary slog to get to the good stuff. What about you? How do you feel about season 2?
I like season 2. Like I liked it. Like I after rewatching it maybe 2 or 3 times since the summer, I find that I'm now starting to notice a lot more things that a lot of the gripes that people had, and then again I also had more gripes this last time around watching it. But I feel like there's still like a lot of strong parts that they tried to implement into the show that shows that there's all the potential in the world for this show. I mean, and these characters. Like I'm looking at Rotten Tomatoes right now, and it is the lowest rated season. Seasons 3 and 4 are the highest. The first is like still at over 90%. And Rotten Tomatoes is a conglomerate. It averages all these reviews.
Right. I think the common confusion with Rotten Tomatoes is it's not like if it says like 100%, that's not saying it's like a flawless work of art, but that just 100% of critics gave it a positive review.
And so I'm just I recognize its flaws, but I then go back and look at the season. I'm like, it still gives me a lot of hope. At least now that we know there's more Avatar things coming in the future, it gives me hope for where they could go, because they have a lot of strengths, both in the production, the animation side, and also just some of the story elements. I know you and I talked about our hopes that maybe they would delve into a couple more complex themes. But I mean, let's talk about it. This is Avatar: The Legend of Korra, Book 2, right? I have a little synopsis, so to speak.
Yes, please hit him with that synopsis.
Here, let me just make sure I get it. I get it right. All right, so Book 2 takes place 6 months after Book 1. Its narrative is divided between Republic City. Oh wait, this is a synopsis. This is a description. Excuse me. I need to find a better. I thought I had a better one.
We can kind of make our own.
Yeah, it's so taking place 6 months after Republic City. The incident with Amon and the Equalists, and now Korra is revisiting her lovely home of the South Pole, as it comes together with the North Pole for the holiday. What is the holiday?
Well, it's the
the winter solstice or something like that.
Is the winter solstice? I know there's a harmonic convergence, but we don't really touch on that until a bit later. I don't know if that's what they call it from the get-go.
It's the harmonic convergence is much later.
Tensions rise between the South Pole and the North Pole, which is led by this guy. His name's Unalaq, and he's actually Korra's uncle.
And so Unalaq has always been the spiritual leader of the water nations, as you will, and feels as if the South has forgotten its ties with the spiritual realm, and which causes rising conflict between the South's leader, who is Korra's father, and then we get into all the spiritual nonsense. It's a lot. There's a lot that this season deals with.
Right, yeah. So, I think, the best... Well, I mean, we'll get into, like, kind of our... the positives and negatives of it all, but let's look at the production side of things, because I think... excuse me. When we look at the production, we see a lot of the things that might have contributed to some of the issues. So, okay. Excuse me again, I'm sorry. We have, it's created by Michael Dante DiMartino, Brian Konietzko. They wrote it with assistance from Joshua Hamilton and Tim Hedrick.
They were
who also.
I was gonna say, they wrote a lot of the the first series episodes, The Last Airbender.
And the episodes were either directed by Colin Heck or Ian Graham. And it originally ran from September 13th to November 22nd, 2013. So it was just a little over a year after book one. And I don't know if last time when we recorded for book one, I said that they ordered each season after each season the previous seasons had premiered. But I was, if I did say that, I was incorrect, because upon kind of doing some rudimentary research for this book, I found that this season was actually ordered, I think, during the production of season one.
Oh, wow.
Because season one was really kind of just meant to be like a television event,
Right.
We're getting a new Avatar.
Right.
And then during the production of season two, they got, the order for season three. And like I mentioned with our book one episode of Korra, it's not like with Avatar: The Last Airbender, where they had 3 seasons and it was all one long story that was all set up from the beginning. They knew where it was going to go, and they knew how long they would have to tell it, and so they could kind of pace it well and tell a complete story that felt like, by the time you got through with it, nothing felt like it was like wasted or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Whereas this, they were kind of making it up one season at a time. So you get these moments of finality at the end of some of the seasons that don't translate well. So like in the first book, she gets her bending taken away, and it's like, ooh, that's a heavy thing. She gets her bending taken away, and then it's like solved in a snap because Aang shows up and in spirit form and unlocks her bending again. And then we get another thing like that at the end of this one that doesn't really hold up when translated to the other seasons. And I felt like maybe this was a result of Nickelodeon not just giving them more than one season at a time so they could plan better.
I would say that there's some instances where I feel like bits of the ending, maybe not book one, but definitely book two, I feel, has a rather mixed ending though, because it has an aspect like that, some sort of, like, as you put it, like a form of finality to it. But then there's also this kind of like optimistic kind of feel, and there's an entire piece of the Avatar verse introduced that they can go explore, and which is explored in season 3. That I'm like, okay, that's kind of a redeemable quality. I do want to add, in terms of the production aspect, according to the Wikipedia of Avatar, viewership of between season 1 and season 2, like book 1 Air and then book 2 Spirits, actually dropped a lot, somewhere between the 1 to 2 million range from like the finale of the last episode to the starting point of this one, at about it went from like 3.5 million to 2.5 million in just the first just the first episode to the last episode of that season alone, and then it actually kind of continued to drop throughout season 2. Kind of sad, I think, but there's a reason for that, because at the same time, I think that's why Nickelodeon decided to change it from like on-air broadcast to like they put the entire last season online, I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
I was gonna say the Nickelodeon's treatment of this series was also not great.
Yeah.
I know, like they took it off the air basically. I want to say like 3/4 of the way through season 3.
Yeah.
And then all of book 4 was online.
That's so messed up.
Yeah, and I mean, especially for a show that, as it went on, it was very cutting edge, and like the production value, especially I feel in book 3 and a lot of the stuff they cover in book 4 was very progressive compared to what anything else you were going to get on Nickelodeon.
Not to mention, like I said, the ratings, like the critic ratings only got higher after season 2, like for the entire show.
Season 3 is my personal favorite. I don't know about you.
Season 3 is very good. There's a lot of dynamics there that I actually love to see, and a lot of, thematically, I think it's excellent. Actually, I would say the last 2 seasons are pretty kind of amazing. But anyways, I think we have
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have the kind of gist about the history of Avatar and kind of where we're headed now in this form, and then we come to our lovely cast. Which, I mean, we have the returning, Jeanette Varney, David Faustino, PJ Byrne, J.K. Simmons, Mindy Sterling, Kiernan Shipka, D. Bradley Baker,
and Seychelle Gabriel, who, again, I think I pointed this out in when we covered book 1, but I think it's awesome that she was the live action Yue from the Shyamalan movie.
Yeah.
And then she got to come back and voice an actual character in the real canon.
So maybe we will get her in new Avatarverse things as live action Yue again, or maybe Asami. Who knows?
Who even knows? But yeah, let's look at some of these new cast members, because the doors opened wide for this season. They brought in so many new characters.
Yeah.
So we get Tenzin's brother and sister, who are also obviously Aang's children. Lisa Edelstein as Kaya.
Yeah.
And Richard Ryle as Boomy.
They are great additions to the team. They both bring their kind of personalities, and we get that part explored of like the dynamic between Aang's kids to Aang. So that's great.
Yeah. And I like how, Kaya is named for Katara's mother, Boomy, obviously named after King Boomy from the last Airbender. And he's definitely, he has that like wildness to him.
Yeah. So it's kind of great.
We get Adrian Latourelle as Unalak, he's our main baddie for this season.
Let me ask you, what's with these Avatar names? You have Tarlok, Unalak, Tonraq.
I think it's very that they're trying to give like proper proper names for their characters, because we get they're all based on like Inuit cultures, the water tribes. As far as I know, that's what I did, and I know Unalaq and Tonraq are brothers, so makes sense that they would have
funny,
similar names. This is a little funny.
Well, I think that's it was interesting. I remember going into it like thinking about Tarlok from before, and then Unalaq's like, that's kind of similar. All right,
Tarlok, and then what was his dad's name? Amon's actual name?
It was
Noatak.
Noatak. Oh Jesus! It's all these northern water tribemen.
Right.
Bring back Master Paku. That was a great name.
That was a good name, yeah. And then here's one of our big kind of like guest actor roles that's really cool is Aubrey Plaza as Eska and Aaron Himmelstein as Desna. So like they're twins. They're Unalaq's children
and Korra's cousins, because Unalaq's her uncle.
That's right. And they're funny. They're kind of like they're both just like these like weird kids, but they're like, the relationship between Eska and Bolin as it plays out in the season is pretty great.
I'll tell you what though, this next duo that we get, I want to say is probably will become the fan favorites. Everybody's moving forward.
Season 2's best contribution.
Yeah, so we have John Michael Higgins as Varick and Stephanie Shay as Julie. The impeccable Julie. Do the thing, Julie.
Oh my god.
Who doesn't love these
What
two?
An amazing character. Both of them,
I have a really great note that I kind of included about Varick, though I'll kind of touch on later. But I want to say like his singularly like one of the best characters of the entire season, sometimes occasionally more than our antagonist, I feel. I just feel like he has a lot more to offer. And
he's got that charisma.
He does. It's just excellent.
Here's another really awesome person who makes a smaller appearance in this book. Our boy Jacob Yi himself, Stephen Yen, as Avatar Juan, the first Avatar.
Dude, and if you didn't check out our last episode about his Golden Globe winning film, Minari, go check it out, because we give him rave reviews about his performance there. I actually watched an awesome interview with him on the Hollywood Reporter Actors Roundtable kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I liked a lot of the stuff he had to say. Yes, I didn't realize that he was playing one, I'll be honest with you. It was a nice surprise.
Once you know it, you can listen to it, and you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely him. We got April Stewart as Rava, Jonathan Adams as Vatu, two characters
we'll get into.
We'll get into it. And then returning from Avatar The Last Airbender is Greg Baldwin as Iroh, the Dragon of the West, and Jason Isaacs as Admiral Zhao.
These were some interesting little cameos they got. I guess Iroh was a little more than a cameo, but at the same time, he...
kind of a cameo.
Yeah, it was super interesting.
Jason Isaacs, though, as Zhao, that's a great moment.
I am Zhao, the Conqueror.
The Moon Slayer.
Oh, boy. They... I liked seeing them in the context of what they were in. I'm glad they didn't overstay their welcome. Exactly. Iroh may have a tidbit, but at the same time, I think it was fine.
I think he did a good job. And then, I think it's like, when Zhao sees Tenzin and he's like, "You're the Avatar."
Yeah. I loved it.
It's pretty good. Okay, I think we can kind of start digging into.
Before you rip the show to shreds, Zach, I think it's only fair to say to give the people what you actually enjoyed from the show.
Yes. I want to do it kind of like how I mentioned to you. I want to do a pro con pro sandwich, so that way we end on a positive note.
Okay.
So I'll say this. I will do like probably half of my positives, and then I'll let you do as many positives as you want,
Okay.
and then I will dig into my long dissertation on why this season's not good.
Yeah.
And then from there,
I think
we will.
we have a new segment in the show kind of toward the end, which I'm really happy to introduce, which is how you would fix it.
Yeah, I mean,
and we'll get into that as well.
Yeah, we'll cover that as we come to it.
Yeah. So why don't you kick us off? What did you like about Book 2, Spirits?
So I already said Varick, fantastic character.
Yeah.
He's like the Tony Stark of the Avatar world.
Yeah.
And obviously his relationship with Zhu Li is hilarious. You know, the do the thing.
Right.
Yeah, he's just a really fun character. I like how in this season he's kind of an antagonist, but not like you can still kind of just laugh at him even when he's supposed to be taken seriously.
Well, I mean, I don't know. At some of the parts where he's kind of serious with what's his name?
Mako.
With Mako, and you know, he kind of corners him and offers Mako the job or whatever it was. I was kind of into his like this sneaky Varick, this kind of brilliant evil mastermind Varick. I actually think that his character has a lot more to offer in terms of like I guess if we look at like pinnacle charismatic characters, I would put like Sokka from the last Airbender at the top, right? And then you know, this season, or I guess this series, we were introduced to Bolin, and I thought, yeah, Bolin, he was interesting, but he was still kind of not campy, but you know, he's
just doofy.
Show. Yeah, but like Varick, I don't know why the fuck I tried mixing their names just there. Varick, I think offers more of that like true follow up to Sokka than Bolin might have. And
he's a lot more.
He's inventive. He's strategic. You know,
yes.
like and not to mention I guess he just makes a really interesting kind of antagonist. So that's his added layer.
He's a cool character. He's a character like that. By the time we get to like book 4, he is like you can see he's developed more of a conscience and stuff. But yeah, he's just, like I said, he is maybe the best addition to the cast, and I have to give it to book 2 for that.
Yeah.
You know, he's a wonderful addition. I like Bolin's whole like movers thing that kind of ties back into Varick. He becomes a mover star as Nuktuk.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of dumb, but I like how it covers this idea of like war propaganda.
Yeah. Which is
something, you know, for a kid's show, it's pretty cool.
I think those are great themes that they're touching on, and I like seeing things like that. I think they're a little smaller. Like I don't think that really did much for me, like the whole Nuktuk thing and like even the little payoff we got at the end. But you bring up a good point. Like that is cool that they're able to throw something like that in the show, especially during times of civil war. Yeah.
So that's another really interesting aspect. I know you wanted to talk about the Civil War because that is a very cool aspect of the story.
Yeah, you know, I just feel like the fact that we're going into such a look at our own country's history, right? Like the Civil War is a very, very, you know, polarizing topic, you know, and that's
polarizing. I get it, because North Pole and South Pole.
I mean, kind of, you know, and it's just like being able to take like one of those kind of concepts and into the show like this, and plus that's like another great way for them to explore, you know, things that aren't just like evil for the sake of being evil, but also just like that's a nuanced topic. You get, I mean, there's a point here where we see people on I don't want to say on stage for like some sort of insurrection with like the death penalty at hand. I'm like, oh my god, this is all big stuff. You know, like this is heavy.
Yeah, and it's interesting seeing how like the North Pole is like vastly stronger than the South Pole, and it like Tarlok and his people have to resort to more of like guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very cool aspect of this season. Something we get more of like kind of like real war allegory in season 4, but for this it's very cool. It's unique.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention, where is it? Everything, start to finish, everything with Tenzin, Kaya, and Bumi is like prime. I love this stuff. Seeing the relationship between these siblings that all came from the previous show's protagonist, and how they grew up, and how their relationship with their parents developed, and by proxy how their relationship with each other developed. It's very cool. It's a very, almost, I don't want to call it an adult story, but it's like it's surprising that you get something that deep in a kid's show.
Yeah, I'm definitely a lot more I don't want to say like interested, but it's kind of eye opening too. I mean, you have a sister. I am one of like 7 children. So like it's kind of, I look back at that, I think of conversations that I have with my siblings, you know, like and in just terms of like how we grew up, and I think that's probably catering to the older fans of the show, but like not in a bad way at all. I think it's like that's entirely human and just really interesting. So maybe younger kids might not understand, but at the same time, or a younger audiences, it's just another great addition. I agree. There's a lot of good. There's some parts that I think it's I think it's not being displayed in the best way it should to cater to its story. I think it's distracted with other parts of the show. But overall, like what they're trying to do with that portion, I think it was very good.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like it's not often that you get to see the perspective of like the son or daughter of the hero, you know, who, and like the pressure that falls on them. And so that was another thing I loved seeing, was the examination of Aang as a parent, which obviously you don't see, you just hear about it from everybody. But I think there's a trope in these stories that come after the first initial story. And for examples, I cite like Harry Potter, I cite Naruto, where you have these heroes who saved the day, saved the world, and then grew up and became parents, and they're shitty parents, and it's never really explored. Like there's that really bad sequel to the Harry Potters, the Cursed Child.
Well, exactly, you're supposed to keep the secret. You can't. Isn't that like the thing that everybody talks about? That like you can't spoil that one thing, the Sacred Child or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
or the Cursed Child, not the Sacred Child. Jesus, I'm looking at it on my shelf right now.
It's not great, and also like I think it kind of does a lot of stupid things with the idea of Harry Potter as a father. And then, like, you know, when you get into Naruto, or rather the follow-up series about his son, he's too busy being the ninja president to make time for his family and stuff. And it's always kind of feels a little contrived, a little shallow. But here I felt like in book 2 of Korra, it was done so well, because it was like Aang was not a bad father at all. He was a good father. He loved his kids equally, but he had a lot of responsibilities. He had his duties as the Avatar. He had the pressure on him.
Teacher.
Exactly, to teach Tenzin airbending, also to instill in his children, particularly Tenzin, the culture of the airbending, the air nomads, so that way when he passed on, the culture would not die. And so you have all these things, and because of that, he inadvertently kind of neglected his kids, aside from Tenzin, who kind of got coddled. And it's just, it's a very believable thing that you could see happening.
That would definitely be the contrast to your statement that you said earlier, which is Aang wasn't a terrible father. His actions would show otherwise. Neglectful man.
Well, I don't know.
I guess he wasn't. It doesn't sound like he was beating his kids and like, you know.
No, but like,
I get what you're saying.
It's like when I think like there's that one scene where Boomy is talking to a statue of Aang, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't an airbender and stuff, and I know you tried your hardest and all that." It's these people, these adults who have come to the age that their parents were when they were kids, and they go, you know, okay, I realize that you weren't just this, you know, powerful person. You were a human just like anyone else.
It's really good introspection and reflection, you know. You have to value it for that.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely want to give props to the whole writing team: Konietzko, DiMartino, Hamilton, Hedrick, all of them. Just, you know, that's the kind of stuff I love to see, especially in a follow-up where, you know, you can have a father or a parent who's not there because they were the hero, but like give it depth, give it reason.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other positives you want to touch on before we on this side of the positives?
I do have one tiny one, and I guess one rather big one, which will kind of we'll sprinkle into other conversations as well. That's that I'm glad we got secret bison that were being grown during the 100-Year War.
Oh, yeah.
By the end of it, that was a nice little surprise, because the bison are some of the, even if they're just on-screen presence, it's really nice to see.
Yeah, it's cool, and it makes sense as to, like, you know, we never find out in the Last Airbender if there are any other bisons, where they are and stuff.
Yeah, so it's just nice to see that someone thought it'd be nice to make sure the species doesn't die out or anything like that. And you gotta you gotta respect them, PETA. You gotta respect them. That's well, conservation sometimes. At its finest. Well.
PETA's got their own. They got
their own agenda.
They got their own
conservation enthusiasts. Then, excuse me. All right. So the point I want to bring is that there, and yeah, I'll go into this throughout our conversation, especially in the negative side. But there is this kind of big debate between fans and on the memes and all these things that we see that Korra isn't as great as an Avatar as Avatar Aang, and maybe we touched on this briefly in the first episode. But I think, you know, now that we're seeing this again, like Korra's big bad fight at the end of this season, because she gets like a new bad guy every season, pretty much for the most part.
Yeah.
And how she handles herself and what's the relationship between her and this person, as well as her and her team in these kind of situations versus Aang and the team. I think this season does another good job, at least in its intent, separating her from Aang and kind of showing that Korra doesn't have this very one type of opponent, this one way of thinking opponent. Her opponents do end up becoming more nuanced versus Aang's. You know, the Fire Lord Ozai he's
just kind of a big bad dude.
He's a big bad dude, and I get, yeah, Aang has other bad guys to fight in between. There's Azula, you know, there's
right.
Yeah, I mean,
Zuko,
Zhao. And yeah, there's all these other you know, people. But I feel like this show, this series, and even this season introduces other types of nuance and details into the antagonists that Aang never had to deal with. The biggest example is that she has to fight her family, her uncle, her cousins.
Yeah.
Like in this story, it's like Aang never had to fight family. Like his family was his friends, and
right, exactly.
Whatever, and like that can cause. I mean, I know they don't dwell on that too much, but like just generally thinking, like there was a big part of the season where like now she has to stop her uncle and the whole North Pole from taking over the South. Like, and at one point she was being put on trial with her mom. Like, dude, that's some heavy stuff. Like that.
Yeah,
and I got to give credit to them.
I like how
the
she has that dilemma of like, I'm the Avatar. I have to be a source of balance in the world. I represent basically everyone, but my personal home is being attacked. Which is something you didn't get with the original series, because by the time Aang is in the picture, everyone he knows is dead.
Exactly. And so I just feel like Korra has to reconcile with a lot of these more personal battles between other people. I mean, I don't want to say personal, but in some way, shape, or form, they're a little personal. And she has to go through a lot more traumatic experiences than I want to say any Avatar before her. At least that we've seen.
Absolutely. And so she gets beat up a lot.
Exactly, and I think her ability to continue to get beat up in this show specifically, like, makes her more valuable to me as like a member of the audience when thinking about her versus Aang. Like, dude, like she went through so much more than Aang, I feel like, ever did.
Right.
And
I mean,
I really appreciate it, even if some of the execution wasn't amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, to people who would say like, oh, she's different from Aang and that's not good, I say she's different from Aang and that is good. I wouldn't want a whole new Avatar series and she's just the same. That's boring.
Yeah.
It's like, give me something new.
Exactly.
Give me something different. And like this season focuses on how she is really cut off from her spiritual side, and it explores that, and that's a major departure from Aang. Is that she's a very I don't know what the word you'd use to call it, a secular person.
Yeah. But I mean, for the most part, like that's my last major pause. I take that as a positive. And so I think we can kind of move into the negatives now, or rather the things that are a little more critically viewed in the show, in our opinion.
Right. So, to anyone who listens to this, and if I upset anyone for my opinions, they are just my opinions, and you can like the stuff I'm going to talk about, and on a level, I like the stuff I'm about to talk about. But here we go. So first off, real quick, Unalaq, he sucks. But he was so close to being a cool villain, because at the beginning he's like, oh, you guys are just not in touch with the spiritual side, and I can help you do that. And he comes across as kind of like preachy and entitled, and he's powerful, but in the end he's very good or you think he's very well intentioned, because he is trying to connect the spirituality of the southern tribe with the northern tribe and make the world better. But in the end, he's just power hungry. He just wants to be the evil tar, and it's stupid, and I don't like it.
You see, I think because of him and because of the way he turned out is why it made Varick a better character in the end. Yeah. Because even with Varick's like kind of antagonist twist that he had at one point, it's just, I think because Unalaq was not fulfilling in terms of like his his like character arc, his circle. Right. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I'm okay with Unalaq sucking if it means Varick was going to be catapulted into amazing characterness,
Yeah. But yeah, so just by the end of it, I wasn't conflicted. I wasn't like, oh man, maybe there's a way we can resolve this. I'm like, no, get rid of him. Yeah. He sucks.
He turned into a giant giant power,
a giant kaiju,
looking thing.
He's the evil tar. Yeah, that's his whole thing. Is he wants to absorb the bad spirit to become.
What's the point if you can only water bend as the bad spirit with spirit energy?
Right.
That's lame.
So okay. Here we go. This is where we're getting into it, because you kind of touched on that. So to get into it, the main problem with this season is unfortunately the two-parter beginnings, which on a purely stylistic level is fantastic. The art in this two-parter is amazing. The
That's
voice
a
acting
positive
is really
I have
good.
is actually a lot of the animation in this. I mean, both the beginnings and also kind of with the spirits, the introduction of all them. Dude, a lot of nice colors, a lot of really smooth and like kind of slick animation. I really like that.
Yeah, some of it's good. I think Studio Mir, who worked on everything else in the series, they only did about half of this season. And Studio Perot did the first half. And there's a few animation errors where like characters just look off model and stuff, but overall it's not too bad. I just, Studio Mir they did literally everything else, and then going into the later seasons, their animation and fight choreography is like tops.
Yeah.
But with beginnings, they do Brian Konietzko and Michael Dante DiMartino. They're I think they're the head writers of those episodes. Yes. Yes, they are.
They have the story by.
They did.
Yeah.
Michael Dante DiMartino did the first part, and then Tim Hedrick did the second part. But I have to imagine, they had the idea in their head. And they did the thing that you should never do in these fantasy stories, which is over-explain. Sometimes not knowing everything is better because it allows your mind to fill in the gaps and makes things seem a lot more wondrous than they are if you explain it.
You know what's funny, Zach, is that I think I heard J.J. Abrams say something similar to that effect.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's true. It's true. I mean, sometimes what the mind comes up with is infinitely better than what the actual answer may be.
Okay.
I put it in our notes. I'm not going to dig in too much because I don't want to, this isn't a seminar, but hard magic versus soft magic, just like where you have like a very set and orderly rule-based system of magic where everything is logical and everything has an explanation.
Mana
versus soft magic.
Such.
Right, yeah. I always cite kind of like Harry Potter is a pretty hard magic system because they have to say the names of spells and they need a wand, and you can't do magic that's stronger than what you're capable of, and there are there's rules. And then there's soft magic, which is like Lord of the Rings, where not you don't explain much. It's just kind of nebulous and it makes things just seem a lot more otherworldly and wondrous. It's magical, and you don't need to explain everything about it, and that makes it, that's how that works.
I mean, you did kind of explain this in an interesting way in comparison, and as the relationship with the first series is that Avatar: The Last Airbender kind of followed a soft magic type of rule in terms of like the spirit world and like the lion turtle and people learning bending from animals and things like that.
Right. So yeah, in the original series and up until this point, the bending is hard magic. The spirits are soft magic. Mm-hmm. The spirits, we want them to seem mysterious, and then we want to make it seem like there's aspects of their world that we don't understand. But with the bending, it's hard magic. You know how the rules work. You can almost like it lends itself to there's a theater of the mind where you can go like, okay, well, if this person does this and this person can do that, and you can almost like see how these fights would play out in your head. Because you understand how the rules work. I'd say for a good example, look at like Hunter x Hunter and its Nen system for hard magic. But sometimes there are aspects that are better for hard magic. Sometimes there are aspects that are better for soft magic. Spirits and how the avatar works and all of that, I feel like that is soft magic. I don't need to know how the spirits work. I don't need to know how the avatar became the avatar. And I don't need to know, like, why certain things are the way they are. I accepted them because it's verisimilitude. It's the suspension of disbelief where you go, yes, I enjoy your show. I'm willing to accept that these things are just aspects of the world. And I don't need every detail. My big problem with Star Wars is they felt the need to explain the Force. Why? the Force was already a perfectly fine plot point, in my opinion. And by going, well, no, it's actually the midichlorians, this microscopic organism in the blood, and this is why it happens, and if you don't have those, then you can't use the Force. It's just, I think it's unnecessary to explain it all. In Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, she never explains how Dr. Frankenstein creates the monster. She never needs to explain it. She just says, oh, he figured it out. Cool, great. It's not important how he did it. The story's not about how he did it. The story's about what happens when he did it.
Yeah.
And the book is not lacking for it. So I don't like they by having this need to explain everything, they break a lot of their internal logic about the world, and I don't and it's just, I feel like everything was just very annoying to me because I love the lore of the Avatar world. In the original series, it was always really interesting when people would talk about it, because you go like, okay, this is fascinating stuff. I don't need every minute detail, but
and we got it in an interesting way too. It's like they would read like stories or something like that, and that's how we would get it. Like, oh, the Oma and Shu, or like the like the dragon dance and things like that. Like, yeah, those were really interesting like aspects of it. And kind of with this, I didn't necessarily agree with this at first, because I did enjoy the beginnings episodes, but when you got to the whole lion turtle giving the bending to the people instead of the people learning it from these other things, then it's like, oh, okay, like you didn't have to throw the lion turtles in there. Like, that, I mean, we didn't really need that. I mean, right. I still like the idea of like the spirit world and like the, that little battle, but at the same time, like it did cause a lot of issues, because then you get into like the whole Rava and Vatu situation.
Right. So okay. So yeah, I'm going to go through, I have like my like key things. So the bending, how they explained the bending in the original series is that the benders learned it from the original benders. They learned air bending from the sky bisons, they learned fire bending from the dragons, earth bending from badger moles, and water bending from the moon and ocean. They were one with nature and observed nature, and that is how they learned how to bend. It was this really cool philosophy of like, the more in tune you are with nature, the better a bender you are. That's why Toph is such a powerful bender in the original series. It's because she learned directly from the badger moles, and she's blind, so she has part of her senses cut off from her. She has to see with her feet through earth bending. She is directly in tune with nature, and she is the like strongest earthbender in the series.
And you have to admit too, that's kind of poetic, right? Versus like they put a definite like direct kind of link between Korra and this and just her visions versus, I mean, they almost had an interesting opportunity. Here's my one fix, I'll put it now. Like, when we get when the Avatar, not the Avatar, when like Tenzin and family go to the island, or the Air Temple, and Jinora is looking at the Avatar statues, and Jinora, we then find out is like our spiritual and Avatar historian, person. I feel like they could have explored it more through that end, and then so Jinora would have been, the person to kind of help Korra get more connected with nature and through history versus like, oh, let's go back in time, let's see all this crap, like it's still through folklore, is how Jinora's
right,
and,
exactly.
And I don't know. Maybe that could have been a route they could have done.
Yeah, it's better if you just go, this is how we believe it happened. I don't need the answers. I don't need to know why. And, like Zuko, he learned directly. He, at first, like, his anger and his determination are what drove his firebending in the beginning. And when he joins Team Avatar, he loses that, he self-actualizes, and that anger no longer drives him. So he learns directly from the dragons, and he becomes a much stronger bender.
Yeah.
But now when you have the lion turtle just gives out the element, it takes away any agency from the person bending, and it's like it makes the world just so uninteresting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It does take away from that. Like, okay, well, what happened to that part of the story? That's what I'm saying. Like, if they're going to create more shows coming forward, in this Avatarverse, how are they going to address that disparity that we've heard both people learn bending from animals and nature, and also people being granted bending from lion turtles?
Right.
Did it go that people learned it from lion turtles, then people taught animals, and then animals taught people again? Like, what is it?
I think the logic would probably be that, like, they got it from the lion turtles, and then they learned to control it better by watching the animals.
That's dumb. I do not accept that.
It's dumb because that's not they say it very clearly in the original series. They learned it from observing the original benders.
Yeah.
But whatever. Moving on. Rava and Vaatu, on paper, is cool. In practice, it seems that DiMartino and Konietzko totally missed the point, because very obviously this is not something you have to think too deep on. They represent yin and yang, the duality of good and evil.
I thought we already got that with the sun and the moon, or the ocean and the moon.
Well, whatever. It's a repeating motif, but even like at the end of the in the final battle and stuff, the final the area of harmonic convergence is a literal yin yang symbol. So they are very much meant to represent this idea, but they also have them in this constant struggle where Rava, who is the spirit of light, is always dominating over Vaatu, who is the spirit of darkness. And then when Unalaq interferes, Vaatu overpowers Rava. And that's not how yin yang works.
Yeah.
And it's so weird because they get so much spiritual stuff right. They've clearly done their research, but they're applying a kind of a Western God versus the devil approach to yin yang, and that's not what it is. The whole idea is that in light there is darkness, and in darkness there is light. It's a duality. One cannot exist without the other, and they must exist in like perfect symmetry.
It sounds like they need to go back to Harry Potter and get some lessons from the prophecies. Isn't that right, Zach? No. Maybe not. Maybe, but it's just I don't know. I just like it annoys me so much. it annoys me so much in this because it's like if they're like, oh, if Vaatu wins, then it's 1,000 years of darkness, but it's like that's not how it works. Like, you could have easily just not had these characters and it would have been fine. Yeah.
And that translates to another gripe I'll go into later. But did you have anything to add to that?
Well, it's just no, because ours kind of coincide. Because my next one talks about what happens then when we now get Rava and Vaatu mixed in with Korra and Unalaq, and kind of the powers that are turned into it. Because I mean, that's something I do want to touch on. But before we dig into that, because I do want to talk about that, let's look at the spirits real fast. Because again, they fucked up the spirits too, right?
And then we'll get into the avatar of it all. So the spirits in the original series, they were, creatures tied to nature, and when their nature was, threatened or destroyed, they would corrupt. And we see that with Heibai in the original series. It's like the panda spirit.
Yeah.
And when the bamboo forest is wiped out by the Fire Nation, it turns into a monster.
Yeah.
And that's a very cool idea that there is this equilibrium between the humans and the spirits, and when that equilibrium is disrupted, it throws off the fabric of nature, and these peaceful spirits become dangerous. But then in this, they're just like, nope, it's actually Vaatu being a little so you can't. There's no agency to the spirits or to the actions of people. There is no natural equilibrium. It's all just one devil doing all the bad stuff, and I hate it.
I mean, which is kind of unfortunate, because when you think of the way that, in real life, how people see spirits, so like there's a restless spirit in this house or something like that, and you kind of grant after whatever they're doing, they grant the spirit some form of closure, and then the spirit's like, oh, I can finally rest. Like that's kind of what Aang does to Heibai, right?
Exactly.
And,
yeah. Well, they find that like the forest will grow back, and Heibai's like, all right, I'll chill.
Yeah. Well, and also like he provides that closure for him, and so by introducing this whole Vatu, and like now we need to spirit bend them back to normal or whatever they call it. Why was that even necessary? Like, that's cool that they did something like that, but why was that even necessary? It wasn't necessary before. They're just making it convoluted.
Yeah, I also don't like the idea that spirits are inherently good creatures, because one of my favorite spirits in the original series was Ko, the face stealer.
Yeah.
Who is not a good creature. Ko is a very bad creature.
Yeah.
He stole the face of one of the previous Avatar's loves and tries to steal Aang's face in it.
Yeah. And also Wan Shi Tong wasn't very nice either. He tried to bury everybody alive.
Right, yeah. And Wan Shi Tong will get later, I think is he in this season?
He is in this season.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, like, it's cool. Like, the show recognizes that there are these very dark spirits in the world, but, like, by saying, no, they're corrupted because Vatu's messing with them, it's again, it makes things a whole lot less interesting.
Yeah. Though I have to say, that's where I kind of get one of my positives from, is that the corrupted spirits, in terms of, like, the animation that they received and like the kind of treatment that they did, at least in the very first episode, made me very excited. I was like, oh wow, like this is, they made it kind of new and also slightly different from the style that the show has already kind of adopted. And
that's fine.
I was like,
yeah,
like from a production standpoint and like artistic standpoint, it looks so cool. But generally, it didn't matter if like the reason behind all of it was kind of lame.
No, absolutely. I mean, if Beginnings was not tied to Avatar, if it was just its own standalone thing, it would be fine. It would be great. Yeah. It would be super well animated. And the story, even if I don't like the story, it's fun to watch because it's an interesting story. But having to tie it to Avatar and have it take away a lot of the mystery that existed in the world, it just doesn't work. So the next problem, because again, this is how bad I feel Beginnings is it has all of these issues that are so tied to the core of the series. So the next big gripe I have is the Avatar, the idea of the Avatar. Because since the initial episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Avatar has always been referred to as the bridge between the material and the spiritual worlds. Yeah. And he is the key to balance in the universe. And at least to me, I don't know about you, at least to me, I always felt that like the Avatar was nature setting an equilibrium. Nature putting one piece on the board that can just keep things in order. And that was just something that naturally occurred, and that's why there's only one, and that's why it repeats throughout the generations, because it's tied to nature. It's nature correcting itself. I don't know how you feel about that personally.
I do like that it kind of goes into the seasons as well. That's why we get like it changes every cycle or something of the sort.
Yes.
Right. It's a nice thought that's how it occurs, and I mean it occurs the same way as like the spirits do, like in that kind of same dimension of in the realm of like you just said, spirits and nature and all that. Like no, it works. It makes sense as it was.
Right,
and
then
now
this...
it's well, actually, I gotta disagree. At the same time, I don't know if I hate the idea of how they explained the start of the Avatar at the beginning here, but in general, I don't like the other things that surround it, like how Juan got his abilities by going to the different lion turtles. Like, okay, that was fine, but in general, the lion turtles and that whole nonsense, I didn't like, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you there. Like, at least like the Lion Turtles, I feel like should not have even been part of this, because it's like, it was cool in the original series, but it was like, it just complicates things, because then you go like, well, at what point did the human world literally become a different dimension than the spirit world?
Yeah.
I don't know. It presents a lot of problems. But yeah, I just don't like that. It was like Juan became the Avatar because he was convincing. You know, he went around and he asked all the turtles for all the powers, and all he had to do was just kind of be like, "Hey, listen, it's important. Can I please get it?" And the turtles were like, "Okay." So I'm like, if someone was convincing enough, could there have been two avatars?
Right. Like, and so that's why it's dumb in the end. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And I mean, just kind of going with that, the idea that now that there's an Avatar, and now that the people were just evacuated from the Lion Turtle cities just to live in the wilds, and now it's just like war has started and it's like inevitable and everything. I'm like, I don't think that's how that works necessarily. I think
if it was just like, if this was just a story being told, and it's like, and then the humans and spirits clashed and their worlds, you know, combined together and stuff, I'd be like, sure. But yeah, seeing it play out like, no, this is literally what happened. Yeah, I don't know if I like it.
Yeah. They have a bad case of Zootopia misunderstanding of cultures. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like they're trying to go for racism, but you're like, I don't think your analogy works.
Yeah, it's too surface. And racism is very much not just about the surface.
Yeah, it's a very complex problem.
Exactly. But yeah, and then I mean, this goes into, I see your next point is the Avatar cycle, which is where I kind of want to bring in something.
This is maybe my biggest gripe, but go ahead.
Well, no, because I want you to begin, because mine is more of like an underlying, like, what was a big dumb thing about.
So I wrote here, where is it? Where did I write this word? The word for Avatar, the word Avatar is derived from Sanskrit, a word that means those who descend. It emphasizes the inherited power through generations. The Avatar cycle and the Avatar state are the beginnings would have you believe that it is because Rava fused with Juan, and it is Rava's spiritual power that causes the Avatar cycle and causes the Avatar state, especially when Juan is fused with Rava and then like touches a magical laser beam. But in being that the word literally means those who descend, you know, it made more sense when it was like the Avatar state is this distillation of every past generation. You have one person entering a state where they are accessing the abilities, the knowledge, the wisdom of hundreds of past lives. And that is why it's so powerful, and that's why it's so hard to control. Because it's basically having a 100 or 1,000 lives dumped into your head at once, and you have access to all of it.
Yeah.
And to say that none of that actually matters, that it's because of this one little spirit creature who at the time was at its weakest it had ever been, I think is a load of donkey shit.
I think a load of donkey shit is it's having the avatars literally beat out of the spirit, and that translates to them erasing. That is literally the stupidest fucking thing in the entire world. Billy,
I hate it so much.
Censor the crap out of that, because it's just absolute garbage. It is like, he whacks her and he gets her good. It's like, one avatar gone, two avatar gone. I don't have an issue. I really didn't have an issue with her being disconnected from past avatars. That that general idea, did not have an issue. It's just the
I have a lot of issues with it.
That's fine. Well, I thought it makes for another interesting character. I'm like, oh shit, like now she has nobody that can relate to her. Anyways,
sure. I'll give you that for now.
Yeah.
For now,
whatever. We'll get into that in later seasons, or I guess if you have another point. But just the idea that like that's how they're vaporized from her spiritual self. That they're just going to be punch you there, whack you there with a water bend. Like that is so stupid. I'm sorry.
It's very stupid. No, it's you're 100% right. And the intent is stupid, the execution is stupid.
Yeah.
My problem is that, again, going off the idea of like the whole concept of the Avatar and the Avatar state is that it is tied to the past lives, not to the spirit that resides within the Avatar. It's so important because in the original series, there was never anything about Rava and Vatu because it didn't exist and it didn't need to exist.
Right.
Because the whole concept of there being an Avatar each generation, and the Avatar state being the accessing of all that knowledge and power and everything, and that being why it's so powerful. And even the whole concept of the Avatar cycle being broken if an Avatar dies in the Avatar state, that makes sense because it's like if you're accessing all of that at once and then you are killed, all of that is killed at once.
Yeah,
that makes complete sense. Why did it need to be explained any more than that?
I don't know. It was just ridiculous.
And then furthermore, and I realize this might have been a problem of them only getting one season at a time and not knowing how much they would be able to go forward when they were writing the season. But like the whole thing in season 3, not to get too far ahead, is that Zahir and all of the Red Lotus, their whole plan is to capture the Avatar and kill her kill Korra in the Avatar state, so that way they sever the Avatar cycle. But it's like if the Avatar cycle, if she
already
lost,
back at ground zero, like what does it matter?
Exactly. And if the Avatar state was tied to the past Avatars and not to the spirit, and she lost all of her connection, it just makes no sense.
Yeah.
And it's like you get all these stupid problems that no one should ever have to worry about.
It's almost as if they should have kind of not replaced, but like rearranged the order of like the seasons, the problems of which Korra was facing throughout the entirety of the show. Like, what if Zahir? I mean, I guess there's a lot of rewriting would have to take place, but like, what if his issue and his gripes with Korra happened in season 2, and then the whole spirit beaten out of her nonsense happened in season 3? I
would have liked it if it just didn't
happen at all. Right? Yeah, that's fine too. I'm just saying, it just on paper, I feel like it would have made more sense, not in that order or something like that. I don't know, man.
Right. So okay, here let's go into what I would change, how I would fix this, because I know I don't want to take too long on this, so I'll try and give it like the spark notes of it all.
Okay.
But like, I'm not a professional screenwriter. I've written a few screenplays in my day, but nothing that's actually been produced. And I don't know what it's like writing a show. Maybe it's a very difficult process, and I'm not saying I'm better than DiMartino, Konietzko, or anyone else.
You're telling me you can't write a 22-page teleplay?
I could, but
there you go.
I'm just and also I have the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah, that's true.
And not to say that they did anything wrong. I'm just saying I would do things differently. So essentially my idea would be you get rid of Rava and Vatu. You don't need them. You keep things limited. You don't need to explain every detail. You can have Juan get kicked out into the spirit wilds. You can have him interacting with the spirits, but have him like, instead of like getting the power of bending from the lion turtles, have him spend time with the spirits and prove to the spirits that he's a good person, and the spirits teach him bending, or teach him the way to to learn how to bend. And then when the humans eventually enter into the spirit wilds and start destroying everything, as they expand and build, have Juan be the one who shows up and stop the two sides from fighting.
Let me ask you something. Because
that's what the Avatar is supposed to do.
I feel like they made all the important spirits in this series talk and have voices, and they were all very much hyperbolized. But versus in the first series, we got some that didn't speak, but there was also a lot that didn't speak. You know, so like I felt like maybe if they would have utilized that as well, just like maybe these spirits were also animals, but they were all just trying to communicate in different ways. Would have been a lot interesting versus hey, you human, get out of here.
Hey, it's stinky.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think maybe a bit of both would have been nice. But yeah, so, and then that's how I would do like the whole like backstory of it, is just like, he spends time with the spirit, with the spirits in the spirit world, and when he because he lives a long time in the spirit world, his spirit becomes kind of imbued with that power, and when he dies, nature passes on his abilities to the next generation, because nature
recognizes his importance.
Yeah, and that's all you need.
Yeah,
that's all you need. And then you go into into the main story of book 2, again, having things like Unalaq as the leader from the north, and he is a very spiritual person and stuff like that. That's still really good stuff. And what's interesting is, instead of making Unalaq this stupid, like, I'm just bad because I want to be the evil tar kind of thing, if you kept him as like, no, I care about the spirits are important, the human world doesn't understand, they've lost that connection, and I'm here to return that connection, and have him represent the dichotomy between spirits and humans, and have him be the polar opposite to Korra, that's a lot more interesting than him just being like, I want the evil spirit, so I have all the power.
Yeah.
Because if at the beginning of book 2, Korra, she's not a spiritual person. She values the human world far more than the spirits. She's ignored any spiritual training. And so to have a villain who rejects the human world for the spirits, I think is a really cool mirror to that. And then there's a lot of drama that can be had there. He's not looking to destroy everything because he's evil. He's looking to destroy everything because he feels that the humans have encroached too much on the spirits.
I think you've kind of inspired a new generation of Avatar lovers, Zach.
I hope so.
And a new generation of Avatar fan fiction.
I hope so. Listen, and I'm not saying this is better, but it's like, at least it's tied to something, like, more than just, I want power, I'm evil.
No,
we got that with Ozai.
Yeah.
And it worked with Ozai because it was like, he was kind of a larger than life villain. He was the Fire Lord.
I mean, also, how are you going to give us like some semblance that like you've learned from that? Like, okay, let's make a little more nuanced character into Amon or something like that, and then just the idea is that you just get better. Put in more details into these characters that are not just like bad for badness sake.
And like, there's an episode, I think it's in like season 4, where they like it's kind of like a jokey recap episode, but they're recapping all the villains, and all of it is just making fun of Unalaq.
Yeah,
because he sucks.
Yeah, it's kind of like what was that one? The players, Ember Island Players, or something. Like that?
Ember Island Players. Yeah. I mean, hey, we're done with the negatives for me. I hope I conveyed my dissatisfaction with all of this well.
I have one last one that's a little more technical that I don't feel like. I feel like it's very off-putting, especially when it comes to like the climax of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And it's specifically, I realized it in the last second to last episode, Darkness Falls.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, we're already in like a semi-climactic battle between Korra and Unalaq. and also
Right.
the twins are there, Desna and Eska. And we're getting like a lot of fast-paced fighting and music and everything, but on the second storyline is that Aang's kids, Tenzin, Kaya, and Bumi, are in the search for Jinora in the spirit world.
Right.
But there's this really jarring and disassociative, cuts between them that does not share anything of like Avatar's past successes with like in terms of editing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just we go from all this fast paced action fighting to not even like a parallel versus like just weird introspection and just nothing. Like the pacing is just so off. Versus I feel like in the past with Twilight of what is it called? Not Twilight of Darkness. What was like the season 2 finale of Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Oh, Crossroads of Destiny.
Crossroads of Destiny. That's what it is. I feel like that episode had a lot of good editing between the two, and other. I mean, that season specifically. I feel like when they were showing all the parallels between Zuko's journey and also Aang and the rest of the gang and Ba
The
Sing
pacing
Se,
was so much
it
better.
really was. It's like peak actually for Avatar if I'm really thinking about it when talking about like two different stories. And I feel like in the heat. I mean, this is the second last episode in the season, and the season's already supposed to have like a lot of stakes at hand as is, and they just did a really bad job in terms of conveying similar emotions or parallels because of the lack of relationships they were trying to build in through the edit itself. And it only occurred to me upon my last watch. I was like, damn, like that episode sucked more than it should have, and it ruined. I feel like
It's just sloppy.
It really was. It ruined part of the story for the whole finding Jinora and the Fog of Souls and everybody like kind of dwelling on their faults part, which is what I was talking about earlier. Like it does not do a justice to that really important story at all, and the action just kind of it was just overshadowing it for the most part because of whoever the hell edited this thing, and I could kick him. I really could. That's my fix. It's really small. I mean, like I agree with a lot of your fixes, and just kind of like complaints about the show. That's why in our negatives I didn't have as many, just because I felt like we were going to kind of discuss it as much. But it's
I tried to be as all-encompassing as possible.
No, but I think you bring up a lot of good points, and then it kind of leads us into like our next area of like what we kind of expect from the future, what we hope to see that they don't make these same mistakes again.
Well, let me say there's a few more positives because I do want to end on a positive note, and these are things that they can consider in the future, down the line. Is things like human stories. I don't care about spirits, and I don't care about the logistics of how the Avatar magic works. I don't care about that. I don't think anyone cares about that. What we come to it, we like to see the cool bending and magic at play, but what we come for is the human stories. For example, this season had Tenzin having to come to grips with the fact that he is not the most spiritually attuned person in that group, and that it's actually Jinora, his daughter.
In the end, I think that speaks a lot more to like his ability as a teacher. I don't know. I love that.
He has his moment where he has to grapple with an inferiority complex towards his own daughter. He has to grow past his hubris, to be proud of her. He learns to basically step aside and say, yes, I'm not the best person to show you this, and I'm willing to swallow my pride and acknowledge that someone else can do it better than me. And I think that's really powerful, and I think it's such a good story beat. And if they can focus on that stuff at like telling a human story at the heart of all this magic and craziness, I think it'll be so much better.
I mean, that's why I kind of like a lot of Korra's like trials, all of her trials and tribulations, because I feel like at their core they do come out. I mean, at least they start off, and you get some semblance of humanity within inside of her, which is why I think she's a much more powerful protagonist than Aang in that sense, regardless of if she needs help in the end, and like she can't take on bad guys by herself. And like, dude, I don't know many people that can do that, let alone a 12-year-old badass kid who, in reality, his only fault that we were ever given is that, like, oh, he runs away and he never faced his fears and shit like that.
Right.
Imagine if he didn't have the ability to take away bending in the end of that fight with Ozai. How would that have turned out? In reality.
Right. Yeah. I think that's all just, it's just, I want to see, human stories. I want to see how new characters interact with each other and how that's played off. Not giant spirit Korra versus giant evil spirit Unalaq.
Right.
I think that's like as boring a finale to a season as you can get. Because she literally, like, she beats him with, like, a nondescript, like, energy beam. But, like, another good thing I'll give this season is I love the way it ends with, like, she says, okay, maybe it was a mistake to cut off the spirit world and the human worlds, and she merges them into one, and it changes everything going forward. And that's what I like to see, is that, like, events in a story have an impact, and change the status quo. It doesn't do it with everything because, again, she has her avatar powers back, pretty much set to go in season 3, and she even is able to access the avatar state with just as much potency as before all the past lives of the avatar were taken away from her, which doesn't make sense. So that's weird that, like, that stuff didn't cover over. Again, this is probably a product of them writing the story for season 2 without knowing they would get a season 3. But, like, going forward, it gets so much better. We're done with the shit. And going into season 3 is, like, near perfection, in my opinion. And that's when we really see, like, they are firing on all cylinders. The story is great. The antagonist is threatening and fascinating. And the events of the season have consequences.
And I mean, listen, I can only hope to look forward to more things. I mean, listen, if that's just the worst we got in all of this series, and then everything else kind of worked its way out, and really was really, really good stuff. I'm looking forward to everything, and on the new platform, Paramount Plus, I actually have no intention on getting it as of right now. But
I'll get it when the new Avatar movie comes out.
It was CBS Now before. I don't know why they had to change it. Viacom owns it. Why did they have to make it Viacom Now or something? I don't understand all these name changes and everything that they have. But yeah, man.
Who even knows?
Exactly.
But I guess you have anything else you want to touch on this series before we No,
I'm just excited really on what we have to look forward to, and I think the audience as well. I don't expect we'll see anything new soon outside of Netflix's live action adaptation, and we'll see
whatever form that takes.
Yeah, but I mean, people can still rewatch these awesome series on Netflix right now. If you have the subscription, do it. Recommend it
while it lasts.
While it lasts, exactly, because now that there's Avatar Studios, who knows what's going to happen? But I think that's all on my end. How about yourself?
I think, if the last, hour and a half of me complaining about a kid's show was any indication, I'm done complaining. I only have good things to say for the rest of the series.
Well, with that being said, you can always listen to Script or Screen on our lovely platforms. Visit our website, www.scriptorscreen.com or anchors.fm/scriptorscreen. I have always been Chris Kitchen.
And I will always be Zach Strackman.
And with that being said, Billy, do the thing again.
Bye.